Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Ceremony. We are on season 2 now, and I am joined by one of our Academy of Modern Celebrancy mentors today, the fabulous Marcia Bravo Celebrant. Hey Marcia.
Hi there, Laura. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great here in Malaga with the sun shining through the
You
windows.
can see it literally beaming through, and we've kind of got a bit of clouds and a bit of sunshine here in the UK. But I always think when I talk to you, I'm always so jealous because you look so much warmer than me every time we chat.
Yeah, that is true, although it can feel a bit cooler inside
Of
than it actually is outside. So sometimes it's a benefit to go outside.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to obviously talk about Celebrancy in Spain today, with you being based in Malaga. But before that, I kind of want to go back to the beginning because you have got such an inspiring story about kind of your life and how you transformed, a really difficult stage in your life into something really wonderful. So I guess really, could we start by you explaining your kind of journey into Celebrancy?
Yeah, absolutely fine. So I basically worked in the UK charity sector for 20 plus years, supporting vulnerable people, families, women and children. Absolutely loved doing that job. I loved managing teams, giving them direction. But basically what happened, it was my mum died and basically I was her carer as well. She was my best friend as well as my mum. And so there was a huge hole
Wow.
where she was. And although I knew that I could go and work somewhere else in a different city just for a change, I needed something that was different. And I knew I could go to another city. I felt that it just wouldn't be enough. It needed to be something more radical. But at that time, I hadn't actually started to think about Spain. That wasn't on the cards. But then it was just, how do I fill that hole? And so I actually decided that I was going to learn to ride a bike.
Oh,
I always wanted to do that. Watch my brothers riding their bikes, but couldn't touch theirs. Tried a few times and fell off.
oh,
And
wow.
so really never got there. So I went and had cycling lessons at the sports centre. And eventually they, as part of that package, they actually gave me my first bike and
Oh,
helped,
wow, I love this.
yeah, and everything to go with it as well. So then I also started to learn Spanish, and that was really more just about thinking, what could I do? I liked the idea of Spanish. It seemed like a really romantic language and the culture. And so I turned up for my first Spanish lesson actually on my birthday as
Oh,
well.
I love that. Oh, there's something symbolic about that, I think.
Yeah. So basically, I just started to learn Spanish a few hours a night once a week after work in the university. And so my journey was still in its early stages. I wasn't thinking about going to Spain. But then I started to go to language exchanges twice a week. I met some of my Spanish friends and I wanted to know where they were from. And I wanted to be able to talk to them because although some of them could talk English, some were at different stages. And so really for a year, I just spent watching them from side to side, listening, but not being able to speak and generally learning more, understanding more, but not being able to talk because that's actually the hardest bit of learning a language is the speaking.
Yeah.
So I basically started to go to Andalusia. I went to Granada first to see where one of my friends lived. I went to Cadiz, where the best friends lives. And then I started that journey. So then I wanted to learn more. So I actually went to study in Malaga with a family for 5 days where we only could speak English. So that really brought my Spanish level on. And after that, I really wanted more and more. So the idea was to just keep going to Spain, keep going to when I had time off work, a 2 weeks holiday from work, I would go and study in Spain. And that's how it developed. And then basically it came to a point, the more that I studied, the more I gelled with my Spanish friends, learned about that culture, the more I wanted to be part of Spain. And so I asked my manager if I could have some extra time away, ideally only 2 months together, but they weren't able to do that. But what she said is, if you can do 1 month here and 1 month there, we can cover your post.
Oh, wow.
And so I went in 2017, I went to Seville for a month and studied for the whole month and lived with a Spanish landlady who only spoke Spanish. That was my choice. And that was kind of the test as to whether I could actually even could be understood.
It's incredible. Wow. To actually, like you say, to make that choice that no, I'm going to go all in and I'm going to live with somebody who literally only speaks Spanish. It reminds me a bit of, the scene in Love Actually where he's with that girl who only speaks Portuguese and then he has to learn how to speak Portuguese. Oh, Marcia, that's incredible. Well done you.
And funny enough, from what you were saying about speaking Portuguese, although I don't speak Portuguese, I was in an airport in Cadiz, and there was a passenger who was sat next to me who gestured for me to come and sit down rather than standing up. And actually, she was from Brazil and she only spoke
Oh,
Portuguese,
wow.
no English. And I was just learning Spanish at the time. So basically, we were communicating to each other, her in Portuguese, me in Spanish. But it was
You
really
got it.
interesting that you can actually understand some bits of
Wow.
it. So yeah,
That's
just
amazing.
on that note.
Amazing.
So whilst I was in Seville, again, that was a test. I really discovered that I could be understood, and I really just loved that Spanish life and being there. And so then I had another month in January, the following January in Ronda. Well, 2 weeks in Ronda because the schools were closed, and 2 weeks in Cadiz. And so I volunteered with the Red Cross there as well
Wow. My
as part of
gosh.
my course. And really, it was from then that I made that decision to live in Spain, but it still wasn't concrete. So really the idea was to find work, and really the local embassy, that was really where I was looking at, but that didn't work out.
Yeah.
So really in the end, it was I spoke to my sisters. I said I really wanted to go. And the only thing that, it wasn't that I was doing anything significant to me, it's just what I had to do.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I was really worried about was, what do I do with all of my furniture?
Oh my gosh, of course. Yeah.
For 20 odd years and things that I've inherited, that was my biggest worry.
Yeah.
So when I talked to my sisters and they said, "Oh, don't worry, we'll take most of it.
Yeah.
We'll do our best." That decision was made. I was
Wow.
going to Spain.
And you've got a background in interior design, haven't you? So I
Yes,
imagine
so-
there was a lot of
yes.
beautiful furniture.
Yes. So I also, although I have a degree in interior design, although I didn't go into practice, but yeah, I've always loved things
Wow.
interior design.
Yeah.
So really, I actually left work when I was 30 to go, following the death of my father, to go back to study. And that's when I did my
Wow.
degree in interior design. And from that point, I suppose I knew that actually life was never going to be exactly the same. I was never going to be frightened
Yeah.
of just leaving a good job, even not having money. It was never going to be something that was going to stop me again to go and do stuff that I wanted to do.
That is incredible.
So really, in the end, I basically, after the support of my sisters, I basically put my house on the market, sold my house, and literally the day before we completed, we completed the day before I was due to get on the plane.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, wow.
And literally, I'd said, "Come on, there were lots of challenges with the sale in terms of inspections." And I was like, I'm going to Spain. I'm not intending to come back to have to complete. We need to complete it now because I'm going.
Yeah.
And so we managed to do it the day before. And I got on the next plane with a suitcase about that big and went to live in
Oh, wow.
Malaga.
Talk about meant to be. So then you've obviously, taken this absolute leap of faith, and you've got all that, courage to do that. What then happens when you get to Malaga to go from then to now?
So what happened was basically I spent the first 7 months just studying in the Institute Picasso, just really to improve my Spanish.
Yeah.
I did a bit of volunteering with a local church who worked with women who were in need. And basically the plan was to think about what I was going to do next. But then what happened was COVID.
Yeah, of course.
So basically we were in lockdown in Spain.
Wow.
And we were allowed eventually out for 1 hour a day, and just within a mile of where we lived at certain times of the day. So we could only go out once, either 6:30 in the morning or I think it was 7:30 at night.
Yeah.
So it's about, okay, what am I going to do now? I need to go back to work. How am I going to find work? So I really started to look online. I looked at a virtual assistant, but I thought that's not going to do it. I'll be bored with that.
Yeah.
But it was about also, where can I be in the world where I don't have to go into an office?
Yes, right.
What can I do that doesn't limit me to where I live in the world?
Yeah.
And then I came across Celebrancy, researched different organizations, and the AMC was the one that really stuck with me, that really felt more down to earth, more grounded, felt like me. And so basically I researched that information and I signed up. I didn't go into any meetings to talk more about what it involved. I knew that was for me. I knew I had transferable skills, and I just went for it. I hit the button, went for it, and started to do my self-assessment.
So when you mentioned you had transferable skills, what skills do you think it does take? Like, what were those skills that you thought?
So a lot of it's about the communication with people, being able to communicate, being able to write emails, being able to follow things through, your deadlines, making sure you haven't forgotten things, and just the way how you speak to people, how to get them on board, get them to understand the processes to make their life less stressful.
Yeah.
So all the things with leading teams really help me to do that in terms of the work that I do when I'm with my couples. And because I come from a charity background, my whole of my life, that's what I've done and what I wanted to do from the age of 18
Wow.
and starting that process.
Yeah.
And very much that's what I brought into being a celebrant. So I really try to care for my couples. That's really part of my approach, my holistic approach, even from the first moment they start talking to me by email to all the way to their wedding day. And even before, when I'm asking them for review and I'm saying goodbye. So for me, it's all those things about being able to talk to people, being able to communicate, being able to manage your time, being able to listen to what people want. And I suppose from working in the charity sector, that was really important to always listen to what was being said rather than make assumptions that we knew what they wanted to say.
Absolutely.
But it was also helping people to have a voice. And that's very much what I brought into my work with Celebrancy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you think your personal grief journey added to you wanting to become a celebrant? Do you think that was an influencing factor?
I don't think it was an influencing factor in terms of becoming a celebrant.
Yeah.
It just was the influencing factor in terms of that I needed a radical change.
Yes.
I needed something big.
Absolutely.
So yes, I don't think that was the influence because I specialize in weddings as opposed to funerals.
Yeah.
So funerals may be something I do in the future.
Yeah.
But no, it was just I needed that radical change. But it was more just really the Celebrancy was about the skills that I had.
Yeah.
The working with people. I love working with people. And so it was the chance to still work with people, but in one of the most beautiful and important days of their lives. And that was what's really hooked me in.
Absolutely.
And just the benefits of being able to do that from Spain, to learn line, to officiate ceremonies in Spain, and to have the lifestyle of living in Spain where not everything closes at 2:00, but sometimes a lot of businesses still shut for 2 to 4 for lunch, and then they open again later. So the day is actually feels like a very long day where you can actually work, but you actually can go out and enjoy if you allow yourself that time.
Yeah.
You can actually go out and have a little bit of time out, see the sea, come back and work. So it was all those factors and just about being able to eat outside.
Yeah.
Literally any day of the year, you can eat outside in southern Spain with a blanket, with a heater.
Wow.
It's just all that culture. I would say that Celebrancy found me. I didn't find Celebrancy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
wow.
that's something that's actually very much on my website.
Yeah.
And with me, it's that it found me and we clicked.
That's so beautiful. And I think exactly like you say, like the hours thing, it's like a strange thing to explain to somebody who's perhaps in a 9-to-5 role and has never been self-employed, because exactly like you said, we might be doing long hours, we might be working evenings. You know, there's a lot of celebrants who may have children, put their children to bed and carry on working in the evening, even in the UK. But actually, what they forget is in the daytime, they might have had a few hours that they've been able to go and do, you know, a nice long dog walk, or they might have been able to go to a yoga class, or they might have been able to go to the gym, or go to, you know, get their nails done. Like, you can kind of dictate the hours. So yes, sometimes you might hear celebrants say that they prefer working longer hours, so they work throughout the day and then in the evenings. But you can also do it where you literally work a 9-to-5 if you want to. But I think, like you say, that's such a important point to make, because actually there can be longer days in this role, and especially in busy season at the moment, you know, like we're heading into peak season right now. So not only are we preparing for ceremonies, but we're writing scripts too. So there is a lot of work to fit in. So sometimes we might work extra hours, but then it does then give us the flexibility on other days of the week to maybe take it a little bit easier.
I definitely agree with you, Laura. Very much for me, I like to have a bit of the structure because I'm more used to working a 9-to-5. Becoming a celebrant is not the first time I've been self-employed, but it's the second time, and it's probably the most successful I've been in terms of being self-employed. So I'm more used to the 9-to-5, but I like to have a bit of structure in the day where I actually work some of the daytime hours.
Lovely.
And then basically if I need to go to a yoga class, I need to go and do something else, then I'll go and do that and come back, and then I'll continue working till later on in the evening.
Nice.
And sometimes, as you say, it could be midnight.
Yeah.
But that I have that flexibility to do that. So the structure gives me the discipline to get up and come to my desk at a certain time and basically to work through what I need to try to work through. But also I have the flexibility that I can then say, actually, you know, if the weather's really good, I'm going to the beach, I'm going to see the sea, I'm going to sit down and have a glass of wine and a tapas. And
I'm just going to sack it all off. I'm going to leave my husband and kids and come to Spain with you, Marcia. It sounds amazing.
I'm waiting for you, Laura.
Honestly, get me on that plane. Okay, so we've covered kind of your journey, which has just been so inspirational. And I think something that a lot of people do worry that actually, oh, I might have left it too late, or oh, I haven't, this is going to be too much of a big change in the middle of my life. I can't do this. And actually, you've proven that you can. Like, there is always something out there that might be better suited for you. And I think that's so inspirational that you took such a drastic change and just went for it. And now look, like it just has all worked out, which is incredible. So I'd really love to cover now kind of how Celebrancy works in Spain, because obviously we might have people listening to the podcast who are international. They might be living in Europe and thinking actually they'd like to become a celebrant in Europe. How does it work in Spain in terms of actual celebrancy?
Okay. So it works very similar to how it might be in the UK. Each country will vary according to any particular rules that might exist. I know in France it can be slightly different as well. In Spain, we are still relatively new in Spain, although there are celebrants who have been working here for 20 plus years.
Wow.
But we are still quite new to many people in Spain. They don't know what celebrancy is. We really have to explain that to them. What does that mean? But in terms of day to day, we're writing the scripts, we're officiating the same way. Some of the differences might be in terms of the venues. Often in the UK, you might have a designated celebrant who's attached to a venue. In Spain, often the planner who's designated to the venue,
Yeah.
and then the planner will have their special celebrants that they like to use.
Yeah.
So it's still possible to approach venues, but you have to find the venues where nobody has already been,
Got it.
where there isn't a planner on board.
That makes sense.
Or everybody on board. But it tends to be the planner who's designated rather than the celebrant. But other than that, it works very much in the same way. It's just that in terms of our season, it depends on where you're living as well. My season tends to be really May to the middle of November, although I sometimes start earlier. So this year I've done a few ceremonies already in April. But that's really in southern Spain. The weather can be unpredictable outside of that time.
Yeah.
My ceremonies are outdoors. So most of my couples who are traveling from the UK, the US, Australia, they want to have their ceremony outdoors in the sunshine. Often there's no plan B. They don't want to go inside. So they want to be outside.
Absolutely.
But yeah, everything is the same. It's just one of the things, I suppose, the difference is because of the weather, because it's quite hot. Often our ceremonies can be later.
Yeah,
so ceremonies can be 5 o'clock. The latest I've done is 7:30.
Oh, wow.
In the evening, because that's when it was more cooler,
Lovely.
I guess. So I suppose that's one of the differences, that we tend to be very much later in the evening that we're doing ceremonies. Very few ceremonies that are in the morning, and sometimes you might get a ceremony at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. But before that time, it's very rare that happens.
Yes, absolutely.
As well.
And my sister lives in Ibiza, actually, one of the obviously Spanish Balearic Islands, and she's a wedding planner over there. And for her, August, she doesn't have ceremonies and weddings because it's so hot and too hot. So actually, it's really funny because she kind of gets like this mid-season break where she's really busy up until, end of July. And then August is very quiet, and then it kind of picks up again September, October.
It's very much, very much relate to that.
Yeah.
It is because August is very hot. So occasionally there are some weddings that come through in August, but yeah, even couples tend to avoid that. Maybe it's because planners have said, actually, are you aware that it's going to be very hot?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is where we tend to get our break. This year, I've actually got several weddings in August in different parts of Spain, Salamanca. I'm actually going to Portugal for one as well. So, and Barcelona. So yeah, I'll be outside in the heat.
Oh, gorgeous. And how important do you think it is, Marcia, to be able to speak Spanish as a celebrant in Spain?
It really varies. It depends on your market. So mainly my ceremonies are in English, but I do bilingual ceremonies. So I do them in a fusion of English and Spanish. So that certainly helps me to attract other couples who want to have a bilingual wedding.
Yeah.
But speaking English works, and there are still many couples who are traveling from all over the world who are having their ceremonies in English. So it's not important to be able to speak in Spanish, but it helps. And it helps if you're working with planners, because you're working often with Spanish planners.
Course, that makes sense.
So if you're able to actually speak in Spanish with them, sometimes that just makes their life easier. Although they usually can speak really well in English, but often that just makes their life easier because maybe their teammates speak mainly Spanish. And so when they're communicating on the day about what's going to happen and prepping, they can be talking in Spanish and I'm listening in Spanish, and that's actually works really fine. So it's an advantage that certainly helps us. And sometimes there might be occasional requests for a wedding that is all in Spanish, but there is certainly a big margin to do many ceremonies in English as well. And some ceremonies might even have a third element, so they might even have an additional language that somebody's going to read a reading in a different language, so it's not Spanish or English.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And would you say more of your ceremonies are for people who have travelled to Spain, or do you tend to do ceremonies for locals as well?
There tend to be more people who travel to Spain,
Yeah.
and then occasionally I will do the odd ones where people are actually already locally here.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, they tend to be traveling from the UK, America, Australia to come and have their ceremony.
Gorgeous.
They're often people who like to travel,
Yes.
and they're often people who have had a connection with Spain and they get it and they really like it. And so they feel that it's the most suitable. And sometimes it might be somebody from the UK who's been brought up coming on holiday in Spain.
Oh, that makes sense. That's lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really
Yeah.
beautiful. And then how does the legal part work in Spain? So how do your couples make their marriage legal?
So generally what happens is we encourage them to marry in the place where they live.
Yeah.
Marrying in Spain is not something that's very easy to do. It's very complex unless you are already living here. You have to be living here at least 2 years in the place where you want to have your marriage. And obviously you need to be able to satisfy all the criteria in terms of the paperwork, or have a partner who's been living here for that amount of time.
Yeah.
So we encourage people to do their legals where they are. The alternative is for couples in the UK to go to Gibraltar as well. So
Oh,
that's
lovely.
a possibility.
Oh, that's a nice idea.
They only need to really be there the night before. They only need to be there one night
Yeah.
during their process. So they're basically, what couples tend to do is they'll come the night before, they'll submit their papers, and then they'll have their legal ceremony the day after, and then just come across the border to Spain to celebrate their ceremony. So sometimes that's also an option as well if they really want to get married as close as possible
Yeah.
to Spain. That's an option. But generally speaking, unless they're already living here or their partners live, it's very complex and it can take months.
Yeah, absolutely. So it makes more sense for them to do it. I guess it's like in the UK, because I cover the Cotswolds, and a lot of my couples, again, same as you, will travel. So it might be that they're international couples and they're coming here to get married. Most of them have already done the legal part in their own country. And I think that kind of makes more sense. But what I think as well is nice is that actually that's like the norm in other countries. And I'm hoping that actually people will start to realise that here too, because I think sometimes couples can hold themselves back from having that truly meaningful and personal ceremony because they're worried about doing the legal bit on the same day, when really it's very common, all over the world, to go and do the legal part separately, then have your wedding day. And I think that is something that we are, getting our head around here as a whole. But there are still quite a few couples that I think that does hold them back from having that real, truly personal ceremony, because they do get hung up on the legal part.
Yeah, as a celebrant, I like to just talk to them about what their options are.
Yeah.
I'll usually ask them if they're having a legal ceremony, if that's their intention, because it may be that they're not going to
Exactly.
have a legal ceremony. And I say they don't have to do that to have a ceremony with
Yeah.
me in Spain. But I try to encourage them to do this beforehand, just so that basically they can spend all their time thinking about celebrating
Yeah.
their ceremony, and just really remind them that actually this is the best part.
Absolutely.
With us, this is really what their wedding is. The legals are a separate part of the process, but this is their wedding. This is a special part. I mean, in the UK, with a few weddings I've done in the UK, I have done where they've done it on the same day. I basically did the ceremony before, and then maybe 2 hours later, the registrar came and did the legals in the same hall.
Yeah.
And that worked really well.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do it on the day, but they weren't put off by the cost. They knew what the costs were. They knew what they wanted. They wanted that separate legal ceremony, very basic. And they wanted that big celebration of their wedding as well.
Beautiful. So do you think then, are there any things that we haven't covered that we need to know about celebrancy in Spain? Is there anything that you think, if someone's listening to this, living in Spain perhaps, and thinking about becoming a celebrant, is there anything that you think they really need to know and be aware of?
I think you need to understand that although there are lots of things that are very similar to being a celebrant in Spain, as I say, we've got the difference in terms of the venues and what things look like in reality. But one of the biggest things is that we are VAT registered. That's the
Yes.
biggest thing that
Ah,
they need to
okay. Oh, talk
understand.
to us
We
about that.
have to be. In Spain, you are automatically VAT registered when you set up. So we are called autonomous as self-employed. So we're registered with the tax office, the Hacienda, and a part of that process means you have to be VAT registered. There is no choice as to whether you are VAT registered. So basically 21% of every transaction that you make goes to the Hacienda.
Yeah.
If you have things that you can legally deduct, that's fine, but there tends not to be that many things that you can actually deduct
Yeah.
unless you're running a service where you have lots of products. So
Yeah.
that's what you need to consider. And it's really important when you're deciding what your fee is going to be for your ceremonies, it needs to be realistic. So in the same way in the UK, you're considering whether you're paying insurance, whether you're paying memberships. In Spain, you need to consider what you're paying in terms of the VAT element that you have to
Absolutely.
pay every 3 months, as well as your tax, as well as your social security. I suppose it feels like social security payments here are quite high in Spain as well. So I would definitely say, in comparison to being self-employed in the UK, from my experience, Spain is more expensive.
Yes.
So you just need to come prepared with that idea. And things are quite strict and quite rigid in that process. There's not much that you can change. You have to follow that process. You have to submit your accounts every 3 months. We submit
Right.
here in Spain.
That's a really great point. Thank you, Marcia. It's something that I imagine a lot of people may not have realised when they, are first looking into it. So that's a really great point to make. Thank you.
I certainly didn't realise
No,
when I came.
absolutely.
I just knew I had to be registered.
Yeah,
I had to do everything legally, but I didn't realise I had to be automatically VAT registered. So that did
absolutely.
come as a huge shock. That took me a long time to really adjust to the fact that I would have to hand over money. I would have to collect it in my
Yeah.
invoices and hand it
Hand it
over.
over straight away.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
one of the things that definitely we should have as an episode on Beyond the Ceremony, where I'll get an accountant on and we can talk to an accountant, because I think this is something that, when you're training as a celebrant, you don't really think about all that side of it. And actually it is something that's really important and something that we all need to know. So that's a good inspiration for a future episode. Thank you, Marcia.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that we
And
sort that out.
there was just one more thing that I wanted to add
Of
about
course.
basically being a celebrant in Spain, and it was just that I suppose it seems glamorous in that we're here in the sunshine, and that aspect of it is true
Yeah.
and it's correct, but you have to be very disciplined because it's very easy to see the sun's outside
Yeah.
and go outside and have a tapas and a glass of wine
Yeah.
every single
Oh,
day.
that would be
But if
me.
you do that, you are not going to be successful as a
No.
celebrant. You are not going to earn any money. You're not going to be able
Yeah.
to pay your taxes, your VAT.
Yeah.
So I'm saying you have to be very disciplined. It is a lovely lifestyle, but we are working the same way as anybody else is. When we finish our work or when we decide there's a break, yes, we can go out
Yeah.
and enjoy the sun and the tapas, but you have to be disciplined. It's not like coming here and just doing nothing.
No,
Because we
absolutely.
know, as existing celebrants, we know there's so much behind it. There's your marketing, there's your accounts, there's a communication with your couples, you're writing the scripts, you're getting them approved, you're re-amending them, you're officiating. So it's just about being realistic as well and not fantasizing about what you really think it's
Absolutely.
like.
There's
Yeah.
so much more to it, isn't there, than actually
Yes.
meets the eye. So I think 100% that is something that's really great to point out. And I think celebrancy all over the world, it looks beautiful, it looks glamorous because, the wedding days they're gorgeous. Of course they are. But that's just a really small part. And I always think that's the reward for all the hard work we put in before. The actual wedding day is kind of the finish line, the reward that we get at the end of all that hard work. And then
Yeah.
finally, Marcia, just one thing that I wanted to ask you. This is something that I ask all my guests on Beyond the Ceremony. If you could give one piece of advice to an aspiring celebrant who might be listening to this right now, what would it be? It doesn't have to just be about celebrancy in Spain. It can be just anything about celebrancy. What would your one piece of advice be?
If you feel that it's for you, go for it. Hit that button and go. Don't spend lots of time thinking about, is it for me? You know whether it is for you. The fact that you've got to page where they're talking about celebrancy and you're even thinking about that, you've got to a meeting where you're already thinking about that process. Just get on with it and get it done. The sooner you do your training, the sooner you can get started and the sooner you're out there. And don't be frightened of it. I came to Spain when I was 49 years old.
Wow.
So don't be frightened of that process. So I would say just go for it. Don't wait. Don't hold back. Don't listen to any negative inner voices. If you feel it's for you, you feel you've got the skills, go for it. It's something that we learn. I wasn't born a celebrant. They didn't say to my mother when I was born, it's a celebrant.
Yeah.
I learned to be a celebrant. And so it's a learning process. And as long as you are happy to learn, you love learning, and you accept that we never stop learning, we're always learning. That's for me is the most important thing. And just to be confident in yourself, not to listen to any inner voices, not to listen to any external voices that might be saying to you, don't do this, or this is a risk. We have to take risks in life to find, the best things in life. So, yeah.
Oh, Marcia, I love that. Thank you so much for joining me. And if people want to find you and just find out more about you, where can they go? Website, Instagram, that kind of thing?
Website, Marcia Bravo Celebrant, or Marcia_Bravo_Celebrant for Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Marcia. And I think we all need a big dose of what you're having, because it's just been such a joy to have you on today. You're just radiating this beautiful warmth. So thank you so much, Marcia. And make sure you come back soon.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Maybe for Christmas, although that means I'm coming back in the cold.
Oh, yeah. I think we need to come to you instead. That's probably a better idea.
Definitely. I think that's definitely the better idea.
Let's take the podcast international. That's what I'm planning.
Definitely.
Episode live from Spain. Oh, well, thank you so much. And thank you for listening to today's episode of Beyond the Ceremony. Don't forget, you've got to like, you've got to rate, you've got to subscribe. The more of that you do, the more content that we can bring you. And also don't forget, if you've got any ideas for future episodes or topics that you want us to discuss, please just get in touch as well. You can leave a comment below, or you can contact us at hello@academyofmoderncelebrancy.com. And I'll see you next time.